In the previous lecture, we completed our exploration of classical trade theories, including mercantilism, absolute advantage, comparative advantage, and the Hector-Alleen theory. Today, we will move on to the next section, focusing on modern trade theories. These theories were developed to explain emerging trade patterns, factors influencing the shift in production and distribution in the context of globalization, and how countries can achieve competitive advantage in the current era. First, let's take a look at the product life cycle theory. This theory suggests that as a product develops and reaches its maturity stage, the optimal locations for production and sales of that product will shift. Initially, the product is developed and produced in advanced countries, but as the product matures, production shifts to other countries with lower costs, while its consumer market expands globally. This theory was introduced by Raymond Vernon in the 1960s, at a time when most new products around the world were developed by American companies and first sold in the US market. For instance, products like mobile phones or cars were initially manufactured in the US. However, as the market expanded and the product reached its mature phase, production gradually shifted to other countries with lower production costs. In this chart, we can clearly see the application of the product life cycle theory. In the US, during the early stage, the product is both produced and consumed domestically. As the product enters its maturity stage, the US begins exporting the product to other countries. Finally, once the product becomes standardized, the US starts importing it from countries with lower production costs. Similarly, other developed countries will initially import the product from the US. Then, as the product becomes more familiar, they start producing it themselves and eventually begin exporting it. Finally, developing countries, which initially only import the product, become the primary manufacturers in the later stage when the product is standardized and production costs are lower there. The product life cycle theory has proven its accuracy in explaining many real-world events. For example, in the 1960s and 1970s, high-tech products like photocopiers were developed in the US. Initially, they were produced and consumed mainly in the US, but as these products reached maturity, production gradually shifted to lower-cost assembly locations overseas. This demonstrates how the theory accurately describes the way industries shift production as products reach the saturation stage. Although the product life cycle theory was once very relevant, today, with globalization and economic integration, its value has diminished. Production is no longer concentrated in one country and gradually shifted to others. Instead, it is globally dispersed from the outset. Products today can be manufactured simultaneously in multiple markets, rather than moving through distinct stages as they did in the past. A new trade theory emerged in the 1980s, suggesting that the ability to achieve economies of scale plays a crucial role in international trade. Economies of scale occur when the cost per unit of production decreases as output increases. For example, in the automobile industry, large companies like Toyota or Ford produce millions of cars each year. By operating at a large scale, they can reduce material costs, leverage automation technology, and spread fixed costs, such as research and development expenses, over a vast number of vehicles. This allows them to achieve lower prices compared to smaller manufacturers, giving them a competitive advantage in the global market. According to this theory, when countries specialize in and export products that benefit from large-scale production, it gives them a significant advantage, especially when the market can only support a limited number of businesses. This theory is often applied to industries with high competition. These industries typically require large-scale production to reduce the cost per unit, enabling companies to compete on price in the global market. For example, in the electronics industry, companies produce large quantities of products like phones and computers to reduce component costs. The automobile industry is another prime example, where major car manufacturers like Toyota and Ford produce millions of vehicles each year to capitalize on economies of scale and lower production costs. Similarly, in the aerospace and pharmaceutical industries, where research and development costs are extremely high, large-scale production is essential to bring down costs. Additionally, the fashion industry also relies on large-scale production to lower prices, allowing them to offer affordable products to consumers worldwide. In industries that require large-scale production to gain a competitive advantage, only companies capable of producing at a large scale can survive and dominate the market. This leads to market concentration, where a few companies with a first-mover advantage emerge as leaders. These companies can leverage their large scale to reduce costs, while new entrants find it very difficult to compete. The new trade theory has important implications for countries. Even without unique production factors, nations can still benefit from trade by participating in large-scale markets. Strategic trade policies by governments play a crucial role in protecting and nurturing potential enterprises, helping them capture global markets and gain a competitive advantage through large-scale production. Porter's Diamond Model, introduced by Michael Porter in 1990, aims to explain why a country can achieve international competitive advantage in certain industries. Porter's Diamond Model, introduced by Michael Porter in 1990, aims to explain why a country can achieve international competitive advantage in certain industries. Porter's Diamond Model, introduced by Michael Porter in 1990, aims to explain why a country can achieve international competitive advantage in certain industries. Porter's Diamond Model, introduced by Michael Porter in 1990, aims to explain why a country can achieve international competitive advantage in certain industries. Porter also divides the availability of production factors into two levels: basic and advanced. Basic factors include natural resources, unskilled labor, and climate elements that a country may naturally have in abundance. However, to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage, a country needs to develop advanced factors such as a highly skilled labor force, cutting-edge technology, and modern infrastructure. It is these advanced factors that are the key for businesses to expand into international markets and maintain a long-term competitive advantage. The second factor is domestic demand conditions. When domestic demand is high, businesses are forced to continuously innovate and improve in order to meet that demand, which in turn enhances their competitive capabilities. The third factor is the strategy, structure, and rivalry of firms. A highly competitive domestic environment fosters strong businesses that are capable of competing in international markets. Finally, related and supporting industries, such as suppliers and strategic partners, play a crucial role in enhancing and strengthening the firm's production capabilities. The third factor is a firm's strategy, structure, and competition. A fierce domestic competitive environment helps cultivate strong firms that are capable of competing in the global market. Lastly, related and supporting industries, such as suppliers and strategic partners, will support and enhance the firm's production capabilities. Government policies can significantly influence the factors in Porter's model. The government can affect domestic demand by setting strict product standards. It can also foster domestic competition through antitrust laws and regulations, or impact the availability of labor and infrastructure, thus creating a favorable business environment. However, to this day, Porter's theory has not been thoroughly tested enough for us to definitively assert whether this model holds up in every situation. The implications of trade theories for managers help businesses understand how to optimize production operations and competitive strategies in the global market. The first implication is related to location. Firms should spread their production activities across countries where production can be carried out most efficiently, taking advantage of local benefits in terms of labor, technology, or infrastructure. The second implication concerns first-mover advantage. Companies that can capitalize on this advantage will have the opportunity to quickly capture market share, especially in industries that require innovation or large-scale production. Lastly, the policy implication suggests that firms need to monitor and influence government policies to create a favorable environment for trade and development. These policies can have significant impacts on each element of Porter's Diamond Model, helping businesses achieve a sustainable competitive advantage.